Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Guess it might not be morning for you.
Yeah, it's late afternoon here.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
All right, I see your note, Robert. Thanks. Appreciate it. Okay, while we're waiting for people to roll in, I'm going to go grab the notes document. And do we have a volunteer to take notes, actually? No volunteers? All right. I know Robert can't. Okay, we'll give it one more minute and see if somebody volunteers for notes, and then we'll get started. Please put your names into the notes document.
I'd be
Okay.
happy to take notes.
Oh, thanks, Sarah. I was hoping
Yeah.
one of you would jump in.
Yeah.
Just for this call, this has been a thing in other community meetings where it's usually the women that jump in. So just put in a call out to, all of you. Thank you, Sarah. I'll stop. Okay, we will get going, and I'm gonna go make sure my dog doesn't come in here really fast. I'll be right back.
Yes, dear.
Okay, everyone. Welcome. It's a tag. By the way, we are automatically recording. If you don't want to be on video, just make sure you're not. And, abide by the usual CNCF community guidelines. Everybody be nice, play nice. Okay. That's okay, Matthew. I wasn't calling you out. Appreciate it, though. Okay, let's do a quick round of intros since we have some new faces. I'm Karina Angel, one of the tag leads for Tag App Delivery. We'll go ahead and go around. Sarah, if you'd like to go next.
Hi, I'm Sarah Christoph. I'm lead on the Porter project and just a member of Tag App Delivery.
There is no just. Okay. Andrea, would you like to go next?
Yeah, hi everyone. I work for IBM. I'm part of the Tecton project, governing board and maintainer of the project.
Jochen?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jochen. I'm starting to get involved into the working group infrastructure lifecycle and first time in this meeting. So yeah, curious to see how it goes.
Welcome. Jason?
I am Jason. I am here as a long time Tecton, well, a long time, but not for a while, Tecton contributor, and just as an interested party in general.
Thank you. Matthew? Now I'll call you out.
Matthew Barr. I work for a company, but I didn't want to disclose it right this second because I'm not sure I'm allowed to do that. and it's financial. And I'm first time here. I'm just interested in maybe helping.
Awesome, welcome. David?
Hi, oops, let me get videos for you. Hi, I'm David Benduri. I'm the engineering manager for the Tecton team at Google. And so I am here to mostly observe, but possibly participate in the Tecton application.
Awesome, thanks for being here. Robert, can you speak yet? Divya? Okay, are you there?
I can speak in 2 minutes.
Okay, no worries. Divya?
Hey, I'm Dibio. I'm a longtime Tecton contributor, maintainer. Yeah.
It's awesome to see such a great Tecton showing. Jerome?
Sorry, let me get my video straight. So, hello everyone, I'm Jerome. I'm also a Tecton maintainer. I work for Google, and I'm here to participate and learn from the process. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks. Chitrang?
Hi, I'm Chitrang. Exact same other details as Jerome. I'm from Google. I'm a Tecton maintainer and here to participate in the application.
Thank you for being here. Karam? I think you're muted still.
Hi, I'm Khurram. I'm also a long-time Tecton contributor. I'm from Red Hat. Yeah, that's it from me.
Michael?
Hi, I'm Michael Kalantar. I work on the Iterate project, and I'd been hoping to present today, but I'm not sure because it looks like we got 3 projects on the list.
Well, I haven't heard somebody from Litmus yet, so
Sounds good.
Alan?
Sorry about that. Yeah. I'm also here with Michael to discuss Iterate from IBM Research.
Thank you. I know both Iterate and Litmus have been waiting a while, so appreciate you being here. Ryan?
Oh, sorry. Is it me?
It's you.
Okay. Hi, I'm from Microsoft. I work on a project called Radius, and I'm just here to hang out.
We like it when you come hang out. Thanks, Ryan. Jerome?
Hello, I'm from Google and I'm a Tecton maintainer and governing board member.
Thank you. Billy?
Hi, I just joined. I am also on the Tecton governing board, and I work at TrainDev.
Thanks. And then Robert?
I got out of the bus. I'm happy. My name is Robert. I work at Soprasteria out of Norway. I am a maintainer on the Open Ghettos project. I'm on the co-chair of the Kotlin working group, and I'm, I guess, up for nomination, and more or less for tech lead and tag app. I do a lot of other stuff, but can't take the entire meeting. So, hi.
Thank you. Okay. Since we usually go ahead and get started with our working group updates, but since I don't really see a number from our working group, we're going to go ahead and get started with Tecton presentation and then Iterate presentation. And then we'll save time at the end if we have more of the working group leads drop in. Okay, so with that, Andrea, I assume that you're going to be taking lead and going through the presentation. This is I was going to give a heads up to everybody that we are currently working on a new process for all of this. So hopefully this is one of the last times that we'll go through this presentation format for all the projects, but it may take another month. We'll see. But in the new process will have a checklist for projects to go through where you'll get all the questions beforehand and you'll be able to fill it all out. For sandbox or incubation, you'll get more of the questions up front. You'll do a more thorough domain technical review with the tag. So that's just a heads up if you're involved in other projects or if you see this checklist coming out later and you're like, oh, what's this? So we're working on that right now. And if you want to be involved in that working group, please reach out to me. So with that, we have probably about 15 minutes for your presentation, save some time for questions, Andrea, and then I will hand it over to you. And thank you, Thomas, for joining. It's great that you're here. Thomas is a co-chair of the tag as well. So.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, for you, Thomas, we've got Tecton first, and then we have Iterate.
Thanks, Karina, Thomas. So this is a project overview. So yeah, try to stay within the 15 minutes. Try to put a mix. We try to put a mix of technical and community data about the project, but feel free to stop or ask question at the end if you want to have more details. So Tecton's vision and mission is to be industry standard cloud-native CI/CD platform components and ecosystem. Key features that we have in the project are scalable workflow. So you can run your workflows in the cloud and benefits from running them across parallel nodes and benefits from like all the Kubernetes scheduling features that you get, things like affinities, resource requests, and so forth. We support both Linux and Windows workloads. And well, the project is born for CI/CD workflows in mind. It actually got quite some adoptions also in the machine learning space for data processing, machine learning pipelines. We have a strong focus on security features. So with Tecton, you can build SLSA level 3 compliance systems. We do things like sign resource integration with a project like Sigstore, and we are able to produce provenance in Toto format. Tecton is cloud native project, so it can benefit from the entire cloud native ecosystem. You can do things like build observable pipelines as we produce metrics, traces, events, following standard like OpenTelemetry and cloud events. Most interesting features of Tecton are in the area of flexibility and reliability. So we have a strong focus on reusable resources. So you can define and embed best practices in certain implementation, like a task that does a certain job very well, and make that reusable. And we publish these resources on places like Artifact Hub. We have a stable API. We have a strong policy about stability for the API. We are very careful not to break our users. Tecton is also used in production at large scale, and we have good documentation available on our website. So architecture-wise, first the component view. There are 4 core services. Pipeline is the main, so the original core service and where you actually define your workflows, and we'll say a few more words about that in a moment. Then we have triggers for events handling, chains for security, and result for long-term storage of history. We have tools like a dashboard where you can see your workflow execution and do any other interesting things. Our TKN CLI and an operator to manage deployments, installation, and updates of Tecton. Also, in terms of resources, we have a catalog, which is community maintained of resources for Tecton, things like tasks and step actions. And we publish those on Artifact Hub, and we also have our own Tecton Hub that organization can deploy internally if they want to expose their own resources as well. Okay, on Tecton pipelines. Tecton pipelines is defined as a set of Kubernetes CRDs, or custom resource definitions. So they're like CI/CD pipeline primitives defined as like Kubernetes CRDs. And for those, we have 2 sides. The pipeline tasks and steps. Those are reusable templates for things to run. And we have controllers for doing standard things like validation, verifying signatures. And then we have the runtime side of things, where we have pipeline run and task run that follow the execution of the resources above, so execution of pipeline and task. And we have controllers for those resources that create all the required resources and orchestrate execution. From Kubernetes point of view, each task run is executed as a dedicated pod, and steps are executed as sequential containers within a pod, and I'll get to that in more details in a moment. We have an entry point that is implemented by Tekton to orchestrate execution within the pod. Just the same kind of information, but visually. So kind of the larger reusable piece is a task. A task is a DAG, so a graph of different tasks. Tasks can be executed in parallel and can run on separate nodes in your cluster. And within each task, we have a sequential execution of multiple steps, one or more multiple steps. Tasks and pipelines get parameters and workspaces as inputs and produce results. Workspaces are things like typically mapped to PVC, where you can store data that is required to move context around in the pipeline. And then below we have pipeline run and task runs that are the runtime execution of those reusable components, each with its own controller. This is a deeper view. I won't spend too much on this, but you can ask questions about it if you want. But in a nutshell, just wanted to show that the Tekton controller creates the pod in a way that it allows it to orchestrate the execution within the pod itself. So we can do things like make sure your sidecars are running first, and then that we have sequential execution of different containers within the pod as we need for orchestration. Okay, switching to Tekton triggers. Triggers, as I said, it's our eventing component within Tekton. So it allows Tekton user to manage things like webhooks and cloud events, incoming webhooks and cloud events, and use those to create Tekton resources as a response. It features things like very powerful filtering and templating of resources, multi-tenancy capabilities, and also custom business logic implementation. So upon receiving an event, we can call to what is represented there as a cluster interceptor and run custom logic. We have some inbuilt doing things like verifying GitHub event signatures, but you can implement those in any language and provide the business logic that you need there. Tekton Chains is our security component for Tekton. Tekton Chains is a controller. It watches task run and pipeline runs, which are the run side resources for Tekton. And when it recognizes some of these resources are producing artifacts, so they're producing things like container images, it is able to automatically out of band produce signatures and attestations in total format for those, and integrates nicely with Sigstore also to allow recording everything that is done on an immutable log. Finally, the last service, Tekton results. So the history of execution of your workflow natively for Tekton is in etcd, in Kubernetes database, because that's where resources are stored. But etcd is not meant as a long-term storage for this kind of information. So that's why the Tekton project developed Tekton results, where again, it's a controller that watches run resources, and once they're finished, and it can grab them from the etcd and stores them in a long-term database. And it also provides a powerful API on top for querying those resources and looking at your history of execution. Okay, about the Tekton community. So the Tekton community is organized in working groups. So we have both project-wide working groups and sub-projects, so dedicated working groups for pipeline, triggers, the catalog, etc. And we occasionally also run some working groups for dedicated topics for a short period of time. But important thing is that meetings are open to anyone. So we have a public schedule for all the meetings. Everyone is welcome. And all the meetings are recorded and published in a place that is accessible to everyone. For contributing to Tekton, we are a very welcoming community. We have a well-defined contributor letters with different roles, starting from a very low bar of entry roles to join the organization, start contributing in different ways, up to becoming a reviewer, maintainer, or member of the governing board. We have a formal process for feature definitions, which we call TEP, Tekton Enhancement Proposal, similar to KEP and many others. And this process is meant for like larger contribution, things that will have an impact on APIs and might have a larger impact on end users. And it's defined in a way that ensures vendor neutrality as well in that process. And currently, Tekton is part of the Continuous Delivery Foundation, the CDF, and it's a graduated project from the CDF as well. We have an open governance. We have a multi-vendor elected governing board. And I placed there a link to our governance documentation. So the governance started early in the project. It evolved along over time with the project. And we have a number of policies that came out of our experiences as well as a project. And we have a variety of contributors and adopters coming from vendors, so companies that resell Tekton-based services. We have end users. We have some very large-scale implementation of end users using Tekton to run their internal infrastructure. We do that at IBM as well. We use Tekton extensively there. We have consumers also from other open source projects, and you can find a list of our adopters at this link, but there are more also not documented here. So this is the current list of members of the governing board. Just as a note, DBO's affiliation is not with Google anymore. It's transitioned to Adobe, and this position is transitioning to Chitrang, who is also in the meeting. But yeah, we have the 5 members, and we ensure that no company can hold more than 2 seats at any point in time. And in terms of community health, we have a healthy community with contributors from many companies. We have end users reporting issues on a regular basis. And so you can find all the statistics from Tekton on DevStat. So tekton.devstat.cd Foundation. Here is the graph over the last year for a number of different developers and companies contributing to the project, but you can get the whole list at Tekton DevStat. Sorry. We also integrated with the you're in the process of integrating with the LFX Insight tooling that is provided by the Linux Foundation. So this is where we have most of the historical information for now. Yeah, so we have a roadmap for the project. As I said, we are very security focused, so we are working on some security features, things like providing signatures for step actions, which is our newest addition in terms of resources, improve provenance generation, and sign our runtime status through Spire SPIFE. We have some new API features coming, provenance for steps and artifacts, pipelines in pipelines, so to create more additional layers of Matryoshka dolls, how you call them. And also we have some work to provide a more concise syntax in some areas of our API. We're also focusing on stability. So many of the projects, chains and results and triggers are working on GA version of their implementation or V1 version of the API. But you can get more details on the roadmap also looking at our Tekton announcement proposal link here, and we also have some project tracking upcoming implementation on GitHub side. Right, so we are excited and looking forward to joining the CNCF and collaborating with the tag app delivery community and well, the CNCF community at large. Yeah, and that's all we had for today. And hopefully we still have some time for questions.
Thank you. Yes. What do you consider your primary use cases for Tekton?
Okay. I think the project started with CI/CD as primary use case, and Tekton is used a lot for CI use cases by our end users and custom users. It is often combined with other tools for continuous delivery. So many our users combine, for instance, Tekton CD with Argo CD and Flux to have the overall CI/CD implementation. And as I was mentioning, there is also adoption in the machine learning space. So Tekton can be used as a kind of backend for Kubeflow pipelines, which allows to define machine learning users to define their pipelines and in the Python format, basically using a Python domain language. And those can be then compiled either into Argo workflow format or in Tekton format.
How do you, I mean, you mentioned Argo, of course. How do you differentiate between, do you complement Argo? Are you direct competitors in the project space, I guess I would say? Or how well do you work together? Trying to see, in the cloud native ecosystem, how are you enhancing I'm not saying it correctly. Unless Jason, you have your hand up too.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't consider Tekton and Argo to be competitors as much as anything in like CNCF can be competitors. They can work together. There has also been some sort of active and passive trading of ideas back and forth between the Argo and Tekton communities. I gave a talk at a KubeCon 4 years ago, God, longer than that, with an Argo contributor about sort of how we both solve the same sort of problems trying to run CI/CD and workflowy type things on top of the Kubernetes abstraction, which I think is a good demonstration of like how we have collaborated either in sharing ideas or contrasting our different solutions to the same sort of problems of having to live on top of Kubernetes.
I mean, I have more questions, but I'd love to hear other people too. I'm sure others have some questions. Thomas? So another question is, how do you manage your CVEs? Thanks, Jason.
I guess, well, I can take this one as well. So we have a technical vulnerability team with private distribution list where everyone can post issues, security issues. And we have a disclosure policy for those documented in our GitHub repository. So basically when we receive issues, we'll have a buffer time to work on those, assess them, verify, assess their criticality. And then after a certain time, we will disclose them, and hopefully we will provide a fix before that.
Thank you.
I can also add a little bit more here as well. So yeah, so in terms of like reporting vulnerabilities, everything that Andrea just said is 100% true. In terms of like managing CVEs for like, you know, general CVEs, we build on top of which I believe is another CNCF project. So we have minimal images for all the controllers that we produce. And then we also have Dependabot enabled. One of the nice things with Tekton YAMLs, because they are YAMLs, is that Dependabot just works with them. And we can sort of take advantage of the Dependabot ecosystem for bumping and doing automated updates for resources Tekton uses, but also Tekton resources that other people use as well.
Thank you. Did everybody see the news about Dependabot too? That they're open sourcing. No, that was useful. Thank you. You also mentioned multi-tenancy. I was wondering how you do multi-tenancy or how you handle multi-tenancy in Tekton. It was just a quick blurb on your slide, Andrea.
Yeah, so we have provide capabilities for multi-tenancy. So basically we have resources that allow you to manage kind of endpoint for coming into a Kubernetes system. So that's what we call event listener. So you can define event listener that will be exposed via Kubernetes ingressors and provide endpoints for sending events into the system. And those can be managed in a way that will, for instance, look at all the filters and all the templates defined in a certain Kubernetes namespace. So you can use different Kubernetes namespace for handling resources for different users on top of the same Kubernetes cluster. So we do have some capabilities as well in our Tekton pipeline controllers to do separation. So a controller can be configured to watch a specific namespace. You could have multiple instances of those running in parallel, watching different namespaces and providing separation. Yeah, I don't know if there are more.
I'm just thinking through the security implications there. You said your focus this year too is on security. I'll have to look more at your documentation, but thank you.
Just another question. It might be that I missed this in the presentation, but you talked about that you are exposing observability signals, and I just wanted to ask what you are exposing, and especially, so are you exposing only metrics? Are you also exposing traces or events? Or
Yes, we expose metrics, so OpenTelemetry metrics that you can look through, like Prometheus or any other standard tool. We expose distributed tracing information. So we kind of took the distributed tracing to allow you to visualize pipeline run and task run execution for now. And we are actually working, we have a tab to allow more, to allow like end users to inject their own data, custom data into those traces for visualizing the things that they care about on the trace. And we also expose events. So we can produce cloud events. We have cloud events with their schemas documented that where we basically send events about workflow specific events. So task run starting and finishing, pipeline starting and finishing. And we also have events. The trigger component itself can produce events to let you know that a certain external event was received, a certain trigger was executed and so forth.
very cool, thank you.
So how have you seen adoption? Has it picked up more recently? Is it? I saw the graph. It follows kind of the industry right now. I mean, everybody's you know, seeing less fewer contributions, right? But how's the adoption with the end users? And is it more enterprises? Is it more smaller projects, or what are you seeing?
Okay, I'll start then if other Tecton members wants to add. We have in the last year, I believe, two services launched that are built on top of Tecton, one from CloudBees and one from Ozone. So two companies that they basically sell DevOps type of platforms built on top of Tecton. So in that sense, we see also in the vendor side adoption growing, and we keep seeing new people from different companies, typically larger companies, the companies we have a large scale DevOps system at least. Yeah, reporting as adopter of Tecton, because Tecton is really, I think, shines in its like security and its flexibility. So it allows you to set up things the way you want, but you need to invest a little bit of engineering in, you know, setting things up, to setting up your DevOps system on top of Tecton. So it's used a lot by companies that, in my view, they want to have the flexibility of setting up their workflows, their system on top of Kubernetes. But yeah, so that they have the engineering capabilities of, so they have a team maybe building a platform which is running on top of Tecton, or setting up DevOps services for their organization. So we've seen a lot of the Tecton users, they have many teams running hundreds of thousands of pipelines. So they need to have all the flexibility that Tecton provides to do that. Makes sense. I don't know, that's my experience, personal experience at least. I don't know if others want to add more.
I'll chime in if I may. Given that we're built on Kubernetes, the adopters tend to be organizations that already are able to run Kubernetes, which means we're tending toward enterprise. A lot of the features are targeted for enterprise needs, such as, for example, the level of security that we're able to provide. We do see a lot of platform engineers who take Tecton and provide it to their users who may not actually realize that they're running Tecton, right? They know the YAML, but they don't understand the internals. In that sense, it's a bit more of a platform than it is a product. And that is also reflected by vendors who are effectively providing Tecton implementations on a per-use pricing basis, where their end users could in fact be individuals who are not Kubernetes competent, but certainly can handle a Tecton pipeline and submitting that to a vendor who handles the complexity of the installation and Tecton management for them.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, awesome, thank you. So really quickly, the governance, you moved this seat, was I'm sorry, now I can't remember who took over. Chirong, you took over the seat that Dipyo had? Did I get that right? So was that?
To try and say it's something, it's actually we are processing, right? We just discussed it in the last governing board. But we will have an election in February. So DBO seat was due to expire in February, so we'll run a formal election there. But we also have a temporary leave policy that we created for such cases where someone who needs to step away from the governing boards can nominate another person who will take their role for a limited amount of time. And this can be vetoed by the other governing members. They can say, yeah, it's fine for us or not. And if everyone else approves, then the person will take temporary the position until for the defined period of time, and then there will be an election if required. So we had cases before when one of the members, for instance, was on maternity leave, and so she stepped away for a few months, and someone else was stepping in for her, and that's when we created this policy, so that we can ensure quorum in the governing board.
I like the temporary leave policy. That's something I think we should all adopt. Okay, thank you. Well, I know that I'll have more questions after I look at the other documentation that we've already been talking about, but Thomas, do you have any further questions?
No, at the moment, not really.
Okay.
So presentation was very extensive, and I think you already asked everything which was to ask. Therefore, I think we can proceed.
And I think we missed saying it at the beginning, is that you are going to apply for incubation, not sandbox. So incubation to CNCF because you're obviously a more mature project. So thank you again for all of you being here. And we do have the life cycle, the infrastructure life cycle working group that is spinning up, and then also the application development working group, as well as the tag itself. So, and then the GitOps project. So hopefully we will see you in a lot of those, but you've been involved in the cloud native community for a very long time. So it's just a natural fit anyway, but thank you everybody from Tecton team and Andrea for presenting. And then we will.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Anytime, of course. Okay, and then Dylan, you are here. Dylan is helping lead the infrastructure lifecycle working group, so I'm glad to see you here. Just trying to put in a plug for you. Okay, moving on. Iterate. If you'd like to share your presentation. Thank you, Michael.
All right, thank you. So when we started this, we did create a presentation. It's linked in the notes. I'll just run through it though, a recording, but I'll just run through it since we're here together. So thank you for letting me introduce Iterate, the Kubernetes release optimizer. We are applying for a sandbox project in CNCF. So the goal of Iterate is to ensure that Kubernetes applications and ML models perform well and maximize business value. And to do this, the sort of general approach across the board is to do testing. And so Iterate strives to make testing easier to adopt at all stages of development and operation. We looked at our own experience with performance testing, with ABN testing, with progressive rollout, and identified the sort of challenges that there are to adopting them. And so Iterate seeks to bring tools and techniques to reduce these barriers. So I'll just look at each one of them briefly in turn. Performance testing ensures that the applications and ML models will perform well. The key challenge for adoption is really around installation and configuration. There's this need to install load generation and configure it, to install and configure some kind of metric store, and then to integrate some form of visualization for the results. So Iterate provides some of these built-in tools. It provides built-in load generation. It provides a built-in default metric store as well. These can be swapped out. In addition, by providing these as default, Iterate can provide near zero cost setup for basic performance testing. For visualization, it's integrated with Grafana. And this load generation, I mean, it supports, HTTP and gRPC endpoints by default. Before load generation started, there are readiness checks built in, and when performance testing is done, Iterate can issue notifications as well. So it can be integrated into a DevOps pipeline. When we looked at ABN testing, we were really looking at ABN testing of sort of back-end systems. This is typically where ML models, for example, might be located. ABN testing typically involves the evaluation of business metrics, which are computed over a user transaction or user session. A user session typically spans several user interactions. For example, in an online store, a user may explore several products followed by a purchase. So the user is coming to the front end multiple times. The front end may be querying the back end. And then finally, the user perhaps makes a purchase. And the business metric is computed over this whole sequence of user interactions. But these front-end services that the user is interacting with are not guaranteed necessarily to be communicating with the same version of a backend if there are multiple versions deployed. And even when that is guaranteed, the front end typically doesn't know which version of the backend was used. This is not visible to the front end due to the way the system is typically configured using a service mesh or an ingress. So to address this challenge, Iterate provides a very simple SDK that can be used by front-end systems to implement their interaction with the backend. It provides a lookup API that identifies a backend version that should be used for interactions. And this lookup API guarantees to return the same backend version for the same user session. And this allows the user-facing or front-end component to know that is A, communicating with the same version of the backend, and B, it's able then to associate its business metrics with that version. And then secondly, this API, this SDK provides a very simple data collection metric, write metric, that will simplify the recording of the business metrics. This SDK is supported in multiple languages. It's based on a gRPC. And finally, it extends the built-in metric store that we've already used, and it extends the Grafana integration for visualization. When we say simple, what do we mean? This is an example of an interaction with the lookup API. This lookup API takes as input essentially the backend component we're interested in the user session. It returns a version number, which then can be used to identify a route. And then the user can send requests to their backend component using that route. When they're done, they compute a metric and write the metric using essentially the same inputs to index which version. Finally, let's explore a little bit about progressive release. Progressive release is a technique in which when we deploy a candidate version, we reconfigure the routing to send some requests, not just to the existing version, but also to the new version. And there are different strategies for how to distribute those requests. It can be done in a percentage-based approach. This is typically called blue-green rollout. It can be done using information on the request itself, like headers or cookies. This is typically called canary rollout. And also we can use mirroring, where requests are just replicated to both versions. After some period of evaluation time, where in fact the routing may be reconfigured again, the candidate is either promoted or deleted. And the challenge is that on the deployment, on the promotion, or on the deletion of the candidate, we need to reconfigure the routing. And this reconfiguration is really very technology dependent. It depends on the ingress or service mesh being used. It may also depend on the kinds of resources that are being used to implement the application or the ML model as well. So Iterate reduces this challenge of reconfiguration by bringing an ability to detect when new releases are made, to detect when they're ready, and then to trigger the automatic reconfiguration of the routing. And it supports this for all of these strategies of progressive release. So Iterate uses a non-programmable approach. It doesn't require changes to the Iterate controller that's watching for new releases. to introduce new ingress or service mesh technologies or to introduce application or ML model resource types. This approach is based on Helm charts. The iterate Helm chart is a default iterate Helm chart that defines how routing should be reconfigured. This definition is technology dependent. And what iterate does is then when it identifies the change, triggers the reconfiguration. Users can actually describe a rollout as input to the Helm chart. Here's an example where a blue-green rollout is being done for 2 versions of an application. The first version here would be the existing version, and the second version would be the candidate version. And this is being done in the context here of an environment where the service mesh, the Istio service mesh is being used. The default Helm chart that supports this kind of rollout supports a number of service mesh technologies, and in particular, it supports the Kubernetes Gateway API, which provides support for a number of ingress and service mesh technologies. And again, further approaches can be integrated by modification of the Helm chart. This is something that users can also do if they wish. So just looking to the future, we're looking to better support large language model-based MOps. For example, hyperparameter tuning is a way of improving models that depends on an ability to test the models. And so we'd like to see hyperparameter tuning be something that Iterate enables better. 2 metrics that are of particular interest to ML models are data and concept drift, and we'd like to be incorporating support for these directly. And thirdly, in sort of the MLOps space is integration, better integration with Open Data Hub. We are integrated with it, but better integration would enhance adoption. This is really a strategy for building a larger Iterate community. So I wanted to mention a couple of projects that are related. Flagger, which is a subproject of Flux, and Argo Rollouts, which is a subproject of Argo CD, both support blue-green and canary rollouts with traffic splitting, session affinity, and mirroring on a variety of ingress and service mesh technologies, and both provide support with built-in load generation. In addition to the features that they share with Flagger and Argo Rollouts, Iterate supports rollout with any CRD or Kubernetes resource type for implementing the application or ML model. So for example, it works with applications built using Knative services, with Kserve inference services, with Selden deployments, and so on. It is possible to extend the support in Iterate by modifying the Helm chart. There's no need to modify the controller. In addition to progressive rollout, Iterate has features to support ABM testing of backend components, in particular of backend components such as ML models, by providing the testing of multiple versions simultaneously, by providing a simple metrics collection and routing SDK, and providing zero downtime readiness checks. Iterate as a controller does not require any CRD installation. And so Iterate can be installed by non-admin actors with namespace scope permissions. And this allows for easier adoption to get started with testing and experimentation. I wanted to say a few words about our engagement with the wider community. So Iterate has had a number of adopters. The project did start in IBM research, but it is an open source project. So the IBM DevOps pipeline has integrated a pipeline using it. There is integration in IBM Cloud Engine, as well as a number of projects outside IBM. Cruise was an evaluation project. Litmus and Iterate did an integration together. We did one with Selden and as well Datacrate. A number of projects we've submitted requests with documentation how to use Iterate into a number of other projects, and it has been incorporated. I have here a list of sort of blogs where we have published articles in the past few years and where we've done presentations. And then I just wanted to mention some of the technologies that Iterate is using. When I say implementation here, these are sort of core to the implementation of Iterate. But when I say application of a model and traffic routing, these are the technologies that we're able to work with applications built using these kinds of systems that we've demonstrated these. But as I said, Iterate can be extended to work with others. And finally, we are applying as a sandbox application. Really, we are looking for greater visibility and increased usage. We're looking for more feedback and contributions. And we really need help around some best practices around governance. We believe we're bringing tools and techniques that make it easier for other projects to adopt testing and in the pipeline. And we'd like to work with others to see how that might be done. I'll open it for questions.
How many maintainers do you currently have?
How many which?
Maintainers.
Maintainers, currently we have 3 maintainers.
Are they all active?
They are all active. There has been a slowdown in how much we are committing on the project at present, but yes.
Is there still, are they all from IBM?
They're all currently from IBM, yes. Yes.
Because I'm looking at your contribution history right now. And you can see that
most of the
has,
contributions are from IBM. They're from the 3 maintainers that are there. And over the past while, it has been, I think, just 1 or 2 maintainers. Yes.
it looks like the project, is there a danger of any of the other maintainers being pulled off of it?
So I think that, there was a period of time when all of the maintainers were working a good portion of their time on Iterate. I think it's true to say that all of us, Iterate is now kind of a second project for all of us. Yes.
What might be good to look into is another project or area that could perhaps adopt Iterate. Whether you did mention Argo, you mentioned others, because you mentioned the Kubeflow, etc. I wonder if you looked at approaching one of those projects to see if they could adopt Iterate as a sub-project. Because right now it looks like Iterate, if it is admitted to the CNCF as a sandbox project, you may not have the resources to continue. What we see right now is, go ahead.
Please go ahead.
So what I see right now from looking at the contributions is that when the TOC looks at your application, they may kick it back and say you need to work on community building before it would be accepted. Because this looks like a really good project. But right now it doesn't look like you have maybe the vendor backing or being able to sustain this project. Is that?
So I believe that all of the maintainers on the project currently are committed to continuing to maintain it. I think that one of the things that we've striven for in the project is to sort of work mostly in the context of user feedback. That we started by applying the kinds of looking at the kinds of challenges that we were facing and trying to address them with techniques that we found were valuable and helpful. But at the same time, we feel a little bit like unless we can get greater feedback in terms of the techniques we've applied and where other challenges may lie, then we're just kind of, guessing. So yes, while we're looking for that feedback and striving to get it in a number of ways, we are also doing other things in the meantime.
Okay. I think, Thomas, do you have something? And we're at time, but I wanted to quickly, do you have something?
Yes, so you talked about the applications before, and I just wanted to ask from a deployment strategy perspective, are you doing blue-green deployments based on services or on workloads or on the application level?
The blue-green releases are based on the applications and a combination of the application and service. So the services themselves are not changing. We're changing the endpoints of the services.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if Karina already asked this, but from a maintainer or a contributor perspective, do you have other contributors outside of IBM at the moment?
There have been a few contributions from outside IBM, but the majority of them have been from IBM.
Okay, that's clear.
Yeah.
And are there any community meetings of the project somewhere? And do you have active participants? And are there some people involved from the outside, or is this currently, or is at the moment everything done inside of IBM?
So we did hold some community gatherings for Iterate, trying to build a community early on. Those are linked in our documentation. The link is here.
Okay.
We are not actively holding those at present.
And is this planned, or?
Pardon?
Is this planned, or do you plan to do this again, or?
I think,
and how do you keep in
as,
touch with the community?
Yeah, so most of our interaction with the community is through GitHub, with
Okay.
GitHub issues and discussions. Excuse me. We will look at sort of more actively holding community gatherings the more feedback we have. Interest in Iterate, has been slow but steady over time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and given I am a user who wants to use Iterate, you said you aren't installing any custom resource definitions or similar. Therefore, what would I have to do to get Iterate to work?
It is necessary to install Iterate. There's it's a Go-based systems. You can install it and run it. It takes a couple minutes to get started.
But how does it inject into deployment or into services?
So it depends on the sort of testing environments. So when we look at performance testing, there is no injection. The applications are running. It is mostly a load generation approach. With ABN testing, it would be necessary to modify the application using the Iterate SDK. For the rollout, the approach that we have found most helpful is to describe the rollout using the input to the Helm chart in the example that I gave. In that example, we were describing really an application with just here, I go back to it. It's describing an example of two applications. These are basic deployment with services. And in this example, the Helm chart supports a very simple definition, but it will actually support a full deployment specification. so that you can incorporate your application definition here. And the same
Okay,
is
and
true
what
for other kinds of
and
objects, yes, resource
what
types.
would this create in the backend? So or would I have to create all of my deployments in such a Helm chart, or could I also do this by myself in Kubernetes manifests?
So I want to say that we've adopted this approach as a default, but we have done this with Kubernetes manifest directly. Yes.
Okay, we're 6 minutes over. So next steps for you, Michael, I'm gonna reach out to you on Slack. I'm gonna connect you. Do you already talk to Brad at IBM in the OSPO office?
I have not.
Yeah, I'll connect you with him. See about some more, see what they can help with for some community building on that side. And then we can also go from there.
All right, well, thank you.
All right. Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
for presenting.
See y'all next time. Bye.
See you, bye-bye.